Record, share. All right, so let's review the questions. So Isaac, the only thing you missed yesterday was the we started a new pasuk, but we just did the translation and the questions.
Okay.
Okay, so sorry, I always forget this. Hold on, let me share the full screen. Okay, so anyway, yeah, migdal oz Shemeshem, bo yarut tzadik v'nisgav. So we said that there's two ambiguities here. So the Tower of Strength is the name of Hashem, and then bo, some of the meforshim said means to it, but then the literal translation is in it. In it, the tzaddik runs the righteous and he is either strengthened or elevated. Okay, and the word nisgav can mean either one, because we say, for example, well, I guess the literal meaning, actually, I'm not sure which one's the literal one, but nisgav can mean strengthened. But then we also say, for example, ki nisgav shemo levado, I mentioned yesterday, that his name is Hashem's name is elevated. So also elevated, both of them make sense regarding a tower, because a tower on the one hand is a place where you go for protection, but it also is a vertical structure, so you can be elevated in it. And then regarding the bow, running to it is less, the disadvantage of that translation is that it doesn't really fit with the word bow. It really should be low. But then also the in it runs the tzaddik also doesn't make sense, because there's not a lot of room to run around in a tower. So that's why we like the Living Nach translation, which says the name of God is a tower of strength into which the righteous man can run and be strengthened. But we weren't sure, we weren't committed to that. And then similarly, Sadigon says runs to it. So he agreed with the to it thing. Okay, so then we had some questions, and I don't remember if we fully exhausted all the questions yet, but the main question is, what's the mashal? Okay, how is the Shemeshem like a migdal oz? Let's just split this into sub questions here. How is the Shemeshem like a migdal oz? In what sense is the tzaddik nisgav? Is nisgav part of the mashal or part of the nimshal? Meaning, is it that he is strengthened or elevated in the tower, and then we need to figure out what that stands for? Or is it that he runs into the tower, and then the interpretation of that is he is nisgav as a result? So unclear whether it's part of the mashal or the nimshal. Okay, then we said, what does yarut mean? And then part of this question is going to have to be, is he running to the tower or in the tower or into the tower? Okay, then we have the question, what is the Shemeshem in this context? Which you could classify that as part of question number one. I'm actually just going to put it before here, but I feel like it deserves its own question because that's like the subject. The subject of the pasuk is the Shemeshem, and then what's being predicated about it is the fact that it is a migdal oz. So I feel like those are two separate questions. What situation is the pasuk talking about? So we said, like, is this tzaddik just stam taking refuge in the Shemeshem, in the migdal oz? Is that where he lives, or is it that when there's a threat, then he runs there, or is it that like he's being pursued, or is it that what exactly is the situation here? What is a tzaddik? All right, our normal definition question. Is this pasuk talking about a tzaddik because he's the only one who does this, or is it that he's the only one who can do this? In other words, theoretically, could this pasuk apply to other people, or is it unique to the tzaddik? Who is the audience of this pasuk? So if it's the tzaddik, then why do you need to tell us that he's running to the Shemeshem? Doesn't he do this already? And doesn't he do this already? And what do you call it? And if it is the, I guess, tzaddik in training, so then what exactly, like who exactly are we talking to? There are a lot of non-tzaddik people in Mishlei. So who are we talking to? What is the practical application of this pasuk? There are some pasukim that like the practical application is clear. For example, the previous pasuk we did, the practical, one who is lax in his malacha is a brother to the master of destruction. So what's the practical action that results from this is don't be lax in your work. Oh, I totally forgot to review last week's pasuk or yesterday's pasuk, but forget it. I want to spend all the time on this. I can maybe send you the summary. So what's the practical implication here? Run to the Shemeshem. Like, what does that mean? We have to translate into practical terms. 9, what is the subject of the pasuk? So it has something to do with the Shemeshem, but what's the it's about the tzaddik's interaction with the Shemeshem. So how do we formulate that? And then the last question, which we might not answer, we'll just have it in the background. What is this pasuk doing in Mishlei? It sounds very Tehillim-y. There are tons of pasukim in Tehillim about the relationship between the tzaddik and the Shemeshem. Mishlei, not so much. Like, what is this doing here, or what does the placement in Sefer Mishlei say about the idea? Like, how does that change? Like, if we saw this exact same pasuk in Tehillim, would we learn it differently or not? Also, just another question, which is not a big question, and I can't actually show this to you because I don't think this mefarish is available online. So I noticed that the Rinachmias, who's a Rishon who did like a kind of like a digest style perush, where he'll quote slash, plagiarize excerpts from other meforshim, and he introduces this. Actually, I'll just show it to you here. I just saw this like right while I was waiting for you guys to sign on, so I didn't have time to look into this. Hold on. Yeah, so he says here, Hachelek Hashlishi, okay? And he says that the beginning of this this pasuk is like the Chelek Hashlishi. I have no idea what that means. Like, there's no psucha and stuma here, as far as I know. Let's just double check that to make sure I'm saying that right. Oops, sorry, that's not the right site. Just 1 second. Let me move you out of the way. Yeah, so there's no textual division here. Okay, so he's not getting this from like the Masorah on Torsh V'chsav. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we'll see if this is a new like topic, but like Chelik Shlishi in terms of what? I just don't know what he means, So like, I guess this is not really a question for us now, but I guess as we move through Mishlei, if we see that like there is a distinct Chelik here, like then that would explain it. But that's not like the top of our concerns here. Okay, so are there any other questions?
I wonder if in his like Hakdama to Mishlei, maybe he.
Yeah, I was going to look there, and I do plan on looking there later on. I just haven't gotten a chance since I found this. So yeah, it could be that he has different halakim. Okay, so are there any other questions here, or shall we dive right in? I mean, I guess let's do this. Let's dive right in, okay? And then if more questions come up, we'll list them. All right, and I'm going to try to display this all on screen. Yeah. All right, so I'm just deleting all the redundant stuff. Okay, so, all right, whatever. Okay, there we go. All right, so what do you say? Where should we start?
Wait, what is the Shemeshem?
Yeah, I think we used was the Shemeshem, yeah. So you guys got a working definition of Shemeshem?
Methodology question.
Yes.
How do you approach when it talks about Hashem in Mishlei?
Good question. That's going to be part of the task here. Here, it's not actually talking about Hashem, though, right? It's talking about the Shemeshem. So, yeah. Psukim that, in other words, psukim that talk about Hashem doing things in Mishlei, then I do have what to say about that, but this is not talking about that, at least not directly.
Okay, so my impression of Shemeshem from this context, is that it's like a reputation for being a person who, like, I'd say like a good person or like in line with Hashem.
You're saying that that's what Shemeshem means, or that's what running into the Shemeshem means? Like, well, I'm not sure where you're getting the person thing from.
I guess
maybe I just misunderstood.
Shemeshem being a migdal.
Shemeshem, okay, fine. All right, yeah. Shemeshem being a migdal. So I do think it's important though to just focus before we say how is Shemeshem a migdal. What is Shemeshem? Now maybe you can reverse engineer what you just said and like split that into two. But like, what is Shemeshem?
When you're saying Shemeshem, are you specifying Shem Yud Ke Vav Ke or just the different names of Hashem?
That's another good question, actually. That's another good question. I actually just want to check something out here. Oh, this is, I want to check this out, but this is also a good another example to show you a cool feature from Al HaTorah. So if you click on the word, you can have a little. This is gonna take a while because obviously the name of Hashem appears in lots and lots of different places, but you'll see why I'm going here in a second. It's gonna take a while. I didn't anticipate that.
What's Concordancia?
Concordancia shows you wherever it shows up in Tanakh. Shows you all the instances of this in Tanakh. So, for example, Yud Ke Vav Ke shows up in Tanakh 6,521 times, and then here you can go through to all the different forms of it. Bashem appears 12 times with a patach. Vashem appears 12 times in Tanakh. Bashem appears 93 times, etc. But what I want to show you is this thing. Graph. So you see here in Mishlei, Yud Ke Vav Ke appears 87 times. Okay. And if we look at Elokim, let me see here. Mishlei, it appears in Mishlei 5 times. Okay. So what that suggests to me is that Yud Ke Vav Ke is just the stam way of talking about God in Mishlei. Now that doesn't mean that doesn't negate your question, but it does make another possibility. In other words, it could be that that's just the stam way that he talks about Hashem in Mishlei, or it could be that he talks about Hashem in Mishlei that way because Yud Ke Vav Ke has a specific idea that is like relevant to Mishlei. So at this point, what I'm going to say is, At this point, what I'm going to say is that we'll just treat it as a stand-in for any name of Hashem. But if we can explain why it's Davka Yud Ke Vav Ke, then that would be good. And I think that in general, like Yud Ke Vav Ke, even though it does have a very specific meaning, Yud Ke Vav Ke is the most go-to name of Hashem. Like, in other words, I'm much more inclined to ask the question, why this name, if it said Elokim, whereas if it said Yud Ke Vav Ke, I'm like, usually my default assumption is that that's the generic name. So it's a good question. I'm just saying that we're not gonna. I don't think there's a need to posit anything unless we're forced to, or unless we have not forced to, unless we have an intuition to do so.
Well, I mean, Shemeshem usually means like someone's like idea of God or like how he relates to God or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So Shemeshem is the I think this has served me very well in my interpretation of Tanakh, that Shemeshem means knowledge of Hashem, right? Shem, I mean, it's not just Shemeshem. This is what we mean by Shemos in general. Like, let's say like last week's Parsha, when it says that that Adam Harishon called Shemos to all of the animals. Oh, you know what? Let's just look at this. See if we look at this inside. I don't know if this is. Oops. I don't know if this is gonna be relevant, but might as well check. Right. So when he says Adam called Shemos to all the animals, Shemos. Right. So Vayikra Adam Shemos lechol behema ul of hashemayim lechol chayas hazadeh. So what does that mean? So it doesn't. I guess there are some meforshim who learn that it means that he he came up with names that fit their natures. But what's like the plain pshat, or what's the actual pshat of the what was he doing? What activity was he doing there?
Just like classifying them, like
classifying them, right? So let me just see. I think the Ralbag mentions that pshat. Hine bezeha oven kara hadam shemos l'chol balei chaim v'lo atzmo lo mata ezer. Okay, Rotzlamer shekasher hisig muskalos v'yedish l'zeha takas nivra. Maybe he's not the one I was thinking of. Maybe it was the Radak. Hold on, Radak. No, was it Avram and Rambam? Someone said it very well. I mean, I think this is a good like the standard shot. Just someone said it very well, that he was engaging in like a scientific classification. All right, I can't find it right now. What is the parish nister? He has a parish nister on this? Didn't know that. Maybe that'll help us in our chumash here. Hold on, I thought the Rambam did say it. Just give me 1 second. Bira Parsha. Maybe he said it elsewhere. All right, whatever. Anyway, yeah. So so Shem Hashem is Yedias Hashem. Shem in general is going to be a Yediah. That's the point I was trying to make from Gan Eden, is that when you're naming things, I guess in the same sense that when we talk about human speech, there's two aspects of human speech. There's the conventional like what we call conventional speech, like the assigning particular sounds to particular things. But then there's the real activity of speech is the mental classification of something, like the understanding, so too when we talk about Shem Hashem, we don't just mean the conventional name of Hashem, of like how in Hebrew we say Elohim and in English we say God. What we mean is a conception of Hashem, knowledge of Hashem. Another good place to see this in the Chumash, by the way, is when Moshe Rabbeinu is let me go here again. When Moshe Rabbeinu is sent to Bnei Israel and given that mission at the Sneh, I think there's a Ramban that is good at that says this very well here. And Moshe asks, what name should I tell them? Right. So let's see here. Ramban. I'm just showing this to you in case anyone ever challenges your interpretation of Shem Hashem as Yedias Hashem. You have Amru li mashemo. Pasuk is Omer lecha parsheni. Right, so this pasuk is saying, explain me. Ki lo yitachen shomer Moshe Amru li mashemo lios lahem os shiaminu bo. So if you take this literally, he's saying it's not possible that Moshe it's not possible for the Shem Hashem to be a sign that they should believe in him. Why? Ki she'elas shemov amiraso lahem ena os limi shelo yamin bo b'tchila. So the request for a name and the telling of the name is not a proof for someone who doesn't already believe in it. She'im yadao Yisrael also, he's going to do me manafshach. She'im yadao Yisrael also Hashem, gam Moshe kahem yada also. So if the Jews already knew this name, so then Moshe also knows it. Ma raya she'aminu b'dvarav klal. What proof is there that they should believe in him at all? Hine achrei hodio es Hashem hagadol amar v'hein lo yaminu li v'az nasan lo osos. So in other words, I think the Rambam makes the same point in the more Nevuchim, but in other words, like this is if you're Klal Yisrael and you're skeptical, so if you ask if you say, oh yeah, God sent you, well, what's his name? So if the name is a well-known thing, so then Moshe telling them the name is not going to help. And if it's not a well-known thing, then how is it going to serve as a proof for them? So then he goes through and he explains, so therefore you can't just say it is like a secret password name, but rather the name means Yedias Hashem, and Moshe was conveying a specific, proof of Hashem or specific concept of Hashem to Bnei Israel. And that's what the Shem means. I forgot if he says that explicitly, but that's definitely what he explains. Yeah. Okay. So Shem Hashem is knowledge of Hashem. Okay. So now we can maybe take another step. Okay. Which is, so now what, no, so Isaac, is that what you were saying, or you're saying something different?
I was saying something totally different.
Okay. Do you want to develop your peers, or do you want to go on this track?
I mean, I think the impression I got, I'm just going to say the impression I got from the pasuk, which is that, in certain circumstances, I'm not sure which, a tzaddik can take fortitude in the fact that he has that he has a set of principles,
Mm-hmm.
and that and so he'll be strengthened in the circumstance.
Okay. So I guess it's not like that's entirely different from this, but I guess the question is, principles is not necessarily equal with Shem Hashem, or at least I'm not seeing the connection there. So the question would be, how is Shem Hashem a reference to principles in general, or what principles is Shem Hashem a reference to? I mean, you are going with the idea that shame is knowledge, right? When you say principles.
Well, no, I'm actually talking about shame in terms of the way that people perceive it.
Okay, so I think that's where I lost you, because on the one hand, I understand that a shame has to do with external perception, but like this is not shame hatzadik, right? This is shame Hashem. So I'm just, according to the way you're taking it, there's like three parties here. There's the tzaddik, there's Hashem, and then there's the viewers, or there's the people who are perceiving him, and I'm not seeing how that enters into the picture.
I'd say Hashem is not really an operative party in this.
Well, he at least
like,
is an object, right? Shem Hashem.
Yeah, I'm saying it's like it's a person. It's like a tzaddik who like has like a reputation of like being like a man of God.
Mm-hmm.
And he can like take some sort of like strength in that. I'm not like very attached to this idea, but this
that's fine. I'm just trying to understand where your intuition is coming from. I mean, like I guess so. I guess you're saying that the Shem Hashem, sorry, the tzaddik's Shem Hashem has this effect, right? Meaning the fact that the tzaddik has a reputation that is associated with Hashem enables him to take this effect. That makes it into a miguel oz.
Yeah.
And, okay.
And the.
You just muted yourself again.
Oh, sorry. I'm holding spacebar, but it's not. I guess I was holding it on the edge.
Yeah.
It's not like in terms of how it's perceived. It's not that it's the tzaddik having a Shem Hashem. It's that like it almost like comes across as like this objective like a tower that's that he's just like he's just like inside, or I don't know the exact.
Yeah, I'm not quite following. Let's for our purposes here for now. I mean, don't abandon your intuition, but for our purposes now, let's just take. I think it's a straighter read to just say Shem Hashem is knowledge of Hashem, and now let's just try to decode it. So, how is knowledge of Hashem a migdal oz for the tzaddik, and then what is being added by saying that he runs into it and is niskav? By the way, I have a plan B. Okay. The plan B. So usually, this is the way we usually do is we try to come up with a parish first. Like I said, this is an extremely hard pasuk. So the plan B is doing a walkthrough of the meforshim, and not like we do where we pick one of the meforshim and then define it and then do another one and define it, just to give you like a broad spectrum in terms of how they interpret the pasuk. And then we can draw from there our own approach. And that's what my chavrusa and I ended up doing when we prepared this over the summer. But I'm fine like working on this on our own, or if you want to say like pull the plan B chord, then we can go ahead and do that, and then like define it tomorrow. We're at the 20-minute mark now, and 20 minutes until the end. So I just wanted to bring that up. Like if you feel totally lost, then that would be a good approach to take.
I mean, if you take out the name of Hashem specifically,
yeah,
I think there's kind of just like a basic surface level idea.
Sure.
Whereas just Hashem, the name of Hashem, whatever, is a tower, meaning to say it's a place where you get protection. You also can get good vision from there, right? It's high up, right? All the good features that a tower has, right? And so the tzaddik, who's a righteous person, is connected to Hashem. So that's a place where he feels protection. He gains vision, and he can go higher up because a tower is strong. So it's sort of like a place of refuge for him, a place to like, re-strengthen himself.
Okay, good. So the first of all, I just gotta point out that sweet audio. That's such high quality. But so that I think would explain the part of the tower mashal, which is the elevation, and then I think based on that we would say nisgav is like elevated, and it would also explain the O's part in the sense that because he is at an advantage and is isolated and up on high, then it gives him a certain type of protection. So protection, again, tactical protection. Like there's different. I think this is going to be part of the mashal here. Is there's different kinds of protection. For example, if it said fortress, then I would think that it's emphasizing the impenetrability of the walls. But migdal has a little bit of that, but it's also the fact that he has the high ground. Like you're saying. So we got that part of it. So now the question is, how does this stem specifically from the Shem Hashem? And then what's the running? Again, is he running into it or is he running within it? But I think that's a good half interpretation of half of the mashal. Yeah, but let's now think about the nimshal, right? Is how does the knowledge of Hashem give him this, or what exactly does it give him? What benefit does it give him?
I mean, if knowledge of Hashem is just like knowledge,
yeah,
then like it would I guess help him like do things and sort of I guess manipulate the world in kind of ways that he needs to achieve certain ends.
Okay, good. So first of all, your clarification, because I feel like we should spell that out, right? Is that there's only two ways to know Hashem, to gain positive knowledge of Hashem. Well, you can't gain positive knowledge of Hashem, but there's two positive knowledge-seeking activities that you can do, which is knowledge of Hashem through studying the universe, or knowledge of Hashem through Torah / Nevuah, right? And those are the only ways you can get insight into Hashem. So functionally speaking, knowledge of Hashem is synonymous with knowledge of reality, but the reason why we don't just call this yediyah is because we're talking about knowledge of the source of all reality, the unified underlying source of all reality, which is Hashem. So yeah. So then, as you're saying, so how does that help him? So the more you know about reality, then the more you can interact with it in a way that's to your advantage or avoid harm. Okay. So this pushes us to a different question now, which is, why specifically phrase this in terms of Shem Hashem? If functionally all knowledge that you get leads to Yediyas Hashem, and that's why, for example, the Rambam calls it Sefer Hamada, because really all Mada leads you to knowledge of Hashem, then why is it emphasizing specifically Shem Hashem here? Why doesn't it just say Migdal owes, Chachma, right? Bo Yarutz, Ba Yarutz Tzadik V'Nizgav, so why does it frame it in terms of Hashem? And also, your interpretations of would encompass like actively, like you use the word manipulate, which I think is good, like actively doing things to secure advantages, whereas the pasuk really seems to be putting the emphasis on a certain passive type of protection. When you're in the tower, it's true, it gives you a tactical advantage, but it's not like if it said, for example, what's the pasuk? There's a pasuk that says that uses the mashal of like going to war with the Shemeshem. That would be more like a proactive type relationship to the Shemeshem. This really seems to be he is shielded and protected. So what is that category, or how does that stem from knowledge of Hashem? Okay, I think it's actually going to be most helpful for us. Let's just do a quick overview of some of the meforshim, okay? And just to show you, one thing I want to show you here is how different their approaches are to the pasuk, and which shows that they're just as confused as we are, in the sense that like there's lots of different routes you can go. And then I think what's going to end up happening is we're going to like elements of this one and elements of that one, and then this will put us into a position to like hobble together a parish on our own. Okay, so first let's do the simplest one, which is Metzudas David. Okay, Metzudas David says migdal, mishan Shem Hashem. So reliance on the Shem Hashem, who kamigdal chazak, is like a strong tower. Okay, so that's the first half of the pasuk. Okay, that's just so you're going to see when you look at the other meforshim, he's alluding to the subject of the pasuk, which is relying on the Shem Hashem. Okay, that most of the other meforshim are more explicit about that. The od yoser, furthermore, ki hamischazek b'migdal hinehu yoshev bo kalu v'lo yifane leleches anava'ana. A person who is in a tower, who protects himself in a tower, strengthens himself in a tower, he sits there confined, and he cannot turn hither and thither, right? He can't go here and there. But when you rely on the Shem Hashem, the tzaddik can run wherever he wants and be strengthened there. So he's actually picking up on so he's taking a stance that bo means in, okay? And and what I framed as an objection to that you can't run around in a tower, he's saying that's exactly the chiddush, that if you're just in a tower, so you're protected, but you can't run. But if you are taking refuge in the Shem Hashem, so then it's not like being trapped in a tower where it protects you, but it decreases your mobility. Rather, if you are taking refuge in the Shem Hashem, you can run and be strengthened. Okay, so it's not saying that the Shem Hashem is a tower, really. It's saying the Shem Hashem is better than a tower, because a tower protects you but confines you, whereas relying on the Shem Hashem protects you and does not confine you. So that really expands the mashal. Now, obviously, we'd have to decode what the nimshal is, okay? But that's one interpretation, okay? Any questions on just what he's saying? Again, we're not going to stop and interpret these meforshim as we go. We're just going to take note of what they're saying, shot-wise. We good? Okay. Next is Rashi just says v'hu mischazek. So I just want to point out he's taking the stance that he's not taking nisgav as elevated. He's taking it as protected or strengthened. Okay. But then we have the Radak. Okay. Ata yivair schar habotchim b'Hashem. Now he will explain the reward for trusting in Hashem. So according to the Radak, and we'll see according to others, the subject of the pasuk is bitachon in Hashem and the benefits that come from that. The Omer, and he says, Ki shemo hu k'migdal oz, that God's name is like a strong tower. Shekol mish yisagiv bo yimaleit. Anyone who seeks protection in it will escape. V'shelo yivtach al basar v'dam. So this is also telling you that you should not trust in flesh and blood. You shouldn't trust in human beings. Ki zero basar v'dam hu hevel, because the arm of flesh is nothingness, meaning that you can't rely on it. Ki hayom hu u'machar eneno, because today he's here and tomorrow he's not. It's not reliable. Aval ezer Hashem lo yechalash v'lo yirafeh. But the help of Hashem will not weaken and will not loosen. V'lo ye'azev es habotchim b'shmo. Ye'azov es habotchim bo. He will not abandon those who trust in his name. U'shmohu atzmo, and shmo is him. So here he is taking the move by the way of saying that it means trusting in Hashem. If it means trusting in Hashem, then why do you think it says Shem Hashem? Like, if they mean the same thing, like what are you gaining by saying Shem Hashem instead of just saying, it could have just said migdal oz Hashem.
I mean, I guess you're trusting in like your perception of God.
Yes, I think that's it, right? Is that really it is impossible to trust in God himself. The only way to trust in God is via the Shem Hashem, is via your understanding of him, which is going to be imperfect and lacking. So it could have said trusting in Hashem. Again, we see many psukim that say trust in Hashem. But again, you have to understand those psukim to mean really trusting in the Shem Hashem, just like here you have to understand this to mean it's trusting in Hashem. Okay. One who trusts in him with a whole heart and strengthens himself, is strengthened in his name, in righteousness, he will be elevated. Okay, so according to the Radak, the subject of the pasuk is trusting in the Shemeshem and being protected. Okay, but he doesn't explain how. So this leads us now to the Ralbag. Okay, and this is going to open up a can of worms. Not because he's the Ralbag. Okay, this is going to open a can of worms here. Migdal oz Shemeshem. Hine Shemeshem hu migdal oz. Kibo oz la'adam. So it's called a migdal oz because in it is the strength of man, v'tokef, and power. Ad shelo yinatzchehu shum davar ra, to the point where nothing evil can vanquish him. And in it he can take shelter from every external harm. Okay, so he says, how is God going to protect you? Through his hashgacha. Okay, through God, the hashgacha, the clinging of God's hashgacha to you. Now, pause. This is something that is a methodological crossroads here. Okay, so when I learned with Rabbi Moskowitz, not this pasuk, when I learned Mishlei with Rabbi Moskowitz is of the opinion that Mishlei only deals within the laws of nature, and Mishlei is not about hashgacha pratis. Okay, whereas, for example, Tehillim is about hashgacha pratis, and that's really how Rabbi Moskowitz understood the difference between Mishlei and Tehillim. Mishlei is all about how to interact and make decisions and achieve success within the laws of nature, and Tehillim expands that to within hashgacha pratis. However, there are some, if not all, meforshim will give their interpretations presupposing that Mishlei does deal with the hashgacha pratis, and Ralbag is one of them. So he's totally comfortable saying that this is about hashgacha pratis. So I just want to point that out, and that would explain how you get literal protection from the Shemeshem, not like Zev said, where you're using your knowledge of Hashem to interact within the laws of nature in a certain way, but that rather God will protect you from external harms through hashgacha pratis.
So what does the Ralbag say the difference is between the two Svarim?
Hard to tell because Ralbag doesn't have a pirush on Tehillim. Yeah, and I don't know offhand where he talks about it, so it's unfortunate there.
Well, I mean, you don't. If other meforshim also say that the book explicitly refers to hashgacha pratis, like you could use any of them.
That's also true, right?
Yeah, you don't need the Ralbag specifically.
Right. But then that would require knowledge of how they treat the difference between Tehillim and Mishlei, and I'm not so familiar about that.
Right,
yeah.
But now you have several options to look into.
Yeah. But one difference is the end goal, though, right? Is that Mishlei is showing you, Mishlei lists its objectives in the beginning, and the objectives of Mishlei are, to give l'seis l'psaim arma, l'na'ar das muzima, practical objectives. Whereas Tehillim is okay. I don't know if I want to spoil like what my theory of Tehillim is, but loosely speaking, it's about God, man, and the relationship between the two. So it's not a practical book, though. So that would be one difference between the way that, even if both of them talk about hashgacha, Mishlei would be talking about hashgacha with an eye towards the practical, whereas Tehillim is talking about hashgacha for knowledge of how God relates to man per se. That's one possibility there. Okay. But so Ralbag is talking practically, and then he explains a little summary of his theory of hashgacha here. So it's mipnei, so yatzilehu mipnei dveikus hashgacha bo. God will save him because of the clinging of his hashgacha to him. Udveikus adam bo hu mitzad hasagaso, and the clinging of hashgacha to man. By the way, dveikus is the word that Ralbag uses for like hashgacha relating to you. That is based on man's apprehension of him, is Yedias Hashem. Lefi mash efshar minimus hanimtzaos hamuskalos el Hashem asher shafa mimenu mitziuso bebriaso haolam. Okay, so Ralbagian language here is how does man get hashgacha? Through man's knowledge of the conceptual order that exists from Hashem, from which the existence of the creation of the world stems, meaning knowledge of the laws of nature, right? So through knowledge of the laws of nature, that will cause God's hashgacha to cling to man. Ubohu omed tamid, and in it he stands constantly. Kihu shemo, because God is his name. Al hatzad shebiarnu b'sefer milchamos Hashem. In according to the way we explained it in the book Milchamos Hashem, I don't know what he means by that. I assume it means something similar to the Radak, for our purposes, something similar to the Radak, where like functionally speaking, you can't actually know Hashem. You can only know Hashem via knowledge of his world, and so functionally, God and his name are going to be the same in terms of from our standpoint. V'hine hatzadik yarutz b'devarim asher yivakesh mitzad hamishan asher lo b'Shemeshem Yisrael v'yimtza nezar b'Hashem ad shekvar yimtza mischazik me'od b'masha bikesh oso yoser mimasha mischazik bo im tarach harbe levakesh hasibus han osos lahagia hadavar ahu mizulas abitachon b'Shem Yisrael. Oh, Rabagian Hebrew. Okay, so it means that I just got to say this in English altogether because I can't do this phrase by phrase. The tzaddik will run in matters that he seeks by way of his reliance on the Shemeshem, and he'll find himself assisted by Hashem to the point where he will be strengthened more so than he would than if he tried to seek these things by working at finding the most proper causes within the laws of nature to reach the thing without trusting Hashem. Now let me translate that into English. Okay, meaning you got two options here. Okay, you can, if you want something, right? Let's say like you want money, you want health, you want success. So you can get that through hasibos hanaosos, which is Rabagian lingo for probability within the laws of nature, or like strategies within the laws of nature, or you can seek it through trusting in Hashem. And what he's saying here is that the tzaddik is going to find more success in trusting in the name of Hashem than trying to work out ways within the laws of nature to get it. Od mitad hamashal, also by way of the mashal, kimiderach hamarutza shetachali sha'adam. If you're running, then you're going to get weaker. You're going to like lose your energy. But with the tzaddik, when he runs in the Shemeshem, he will be strengthened and become more powerful. And that's true according to what we said. So he's taking the running differently. The Metzudas David was saying that running means that unlike a tower where you are confined to a narrow space, the tzaddik will be able to run all around and not be confined. Rabag is saying that the derech of a runner is the more you run, the weaker you become. So I guess in the mashal here is if you're not trusting the Shemeshem and you're going around trying to like find success or trying to find what you want in something, you can get weaker. But the tzaddik, when you trust in the Shemeshem, is only going to get stronger. Okay, so that's Rabag's take on this. Has to do with Hashgacha Pratis. Okay, two more. I don't know if we're gonna have time for all of this today. I'm gonna go to the shorter one. Rabbeinu Yonah says several interpretations, which I guess we'll have to save for tomorrow. The Meiri is what I want. Hold on, it's behind my Zoom controls. Okay, here's what the Meiri says. So he learns that this is part of Psukim 10, 11, and 12. So we're only going to read what he says for 10. He'ara al habitachon bakel yisale. So this is a lesson about trust in God. So it takes a similar thing. V'dima habitachon bo lemigdal os. He compares trust in God. Or by the way, just back up for 1 second. Bitachon, sometimes I think the word trust is better. Sometimes security is better. So you can use those interchangeably until we figure out what's a better term here. It compares trust in God to a tall tower. Shehu havtacha mikol oyev, which provides security. Here, I think security is better, from every enemy laha'omdim besocho, to those who are in it. Ka'omro pen matzalo arim betzuros v'hitil of hitil inenu with an ayin. I don't know what that is. I don't know. I have no idea what that means. I'm not going to look it up right now. V'ulam misad she'are hamivtzar al harov him miklat lagnavim ularotzchim ulalistim. However, since in general fortified cities are a refuge for thieves and murderers and bandits, Amarhena bo yarutz tzadik v'niskav. So that's why it specifies that the tzaddik runs into it and is protected. Klomar, chalila lihioso yis'ala mivtzar umiklat umiftach larasha ulachote. So this was answering the question that one of you asked yesterday, which is this also a refuge for these other people? So Miri says, chalila, God forbid that this is literally like a fortified city where you got bad guys in there also. This is just for the tzaddik. Okay, it's just the tzaddik. V'niskav, what does it mean, niskav? Rotzalam gavoa me'al b'ma'ala ushlemus. It is tall, or it is great in stature and in perfection. Now, I don't know if he's speaking in terms of the mashal or the nimshal, that the tower is great in stature and perfection, or the tzaddik is great in ma'ala, in virtue and perfection. I don't even know how he's interpreting it. V'lodimahu lemigdal rak ledimion ha'amida sham. Sounds like he's talking about the tower. It's only being compared to the tower in terms of the mashal of standing there. B'bitachon mikol tsar, in protection from any enemy. V'chein haboteach bo min hatzadikim. So too, the one who trusts in God from among the tzaddikim, omdim levetach gam be'es tzarasam im habitachon bo v'lo b'zulaso. They stand there in security, even at the time of their distress, with trust in him and not in any other. And he quotes a bunch of psukim to support this. So the two interesting notes here. One is he's specifying it's only for the tzaddik, which is kind of mashma in Rabag also. But he's also saying that gam be'es tzarasam, then they're trusting in Hashem. So in other words, the Shemeshem is not going to protect you from being subject to an Eis Tzara, but when you're in an Eis Tzara, then you're taking refuge there. That's a nuance that we might have to explore tomorrow. So let's plan on tomorrow doing Rabbeinu Yonah, who's going to give us another whole approach, and then we'll try to figure it out. Okay, and if we don't figure it out tomorrow, then we're in trouble because tomorrow's our last day of learning Mishlei this week. Okay, so let's hope we can get something tomorrow. All right, see you guys later.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.